friends and followers, it's good to have you back here for another episode. This one's been a bit of a challenge. My computer's been powering off because it's been getting too hot and it's a cold day, so see how it goes. This is episode 30, 3rd of September 2017. This episode is going to be on Area 51 and the Bob Lazar connection, and some new findings I have found, and done some work on a graphic editor which I will showcase to you and see what you think. In case you haven't heard of the Bob Lazar story, basically he approached a TV network as a government whistleblower, saying that he had some information about UFOs and secret testing going on. And he's the one that first brought a light to Area 51, the Air Force base out in the desert in Nevada. And he also talked about S4, which stands for Site 4. So there must be Site 1 and Site 2 and Site 3 out there as well that we haven't heard of. And gave these wild claims about recovered alien technology, and the technicians and scientists out there are trying to reverse engineer it and figure it out. And they've got, I think it was 9 captured sources, as it says, and inside a hidden hangar bay inside the side of a mountain overlooking a dry lake bed. And it's camouflaged, so you can't see it unless you're really up close to it. And we'll be going over some satellite imagery and see if we can figure out the location and see if we can see it. I have the full interview and transcript, and I will put that at the end of the episode if you want to go through and read it all. It's quite a long interview, and it's pages and pages long of transcript and details that you can go over. And initially Bob Lazar wasn't known as Robert or Bob. He was called Dennis, and used a hidden identity and not show his face. But we all know the details now. Well, those in the UFO community know about it. So this is just a quick summary. So I thought I'd do a search in Google Maps. Now, the reason I chose Maps is, according to experts, it's more up to date and is more accurate than Google Earth, and that may not be the case anymore, but this is a recent article. The fact is that my machine wouldn't handle Google Earth because it would keep overheating, and I don't have a dedicated video card chip anymore because it's broken in the device, so I'm having to use the CPU graphic capabilities. But the maps look identical to the Google Earth to me, and I did a quick search and found that Area 51 is a pretty common name now. So it used to in the past simply just zero in on the area on the satellite view or map view, and you can see also that I found some information about S4 on a layer. Seems that people can add layers onto maps now, and you can find them in Google search. So I found this area and started investigating it more to see if I could see anything where they're highlighting. So this is what this episode's about, as well as a summary of Bob Lazar findings, or Bob Lazar's claims, I should say. I find it interesting they haven't censored the whole area, because normally you get with the terror alert nowadays that power plants are not viewable, but they have disabled street view on it, so you can't see more detail than what they can get from their public satellites that they use. I'm sure the military can actually see the nose on people's faces with their high-tech satellites, but Google Earth obviously hasn't got access to them. At first I didn't have 3D view in my browser for maps. Apparently if you disable WebGL, which most people did when the NSA spying alert came out saying that they could get your details off your machine and IP address using WebGL through some browser holes. Everybody disabled it, or everybody that obviously into computer security. So I loaded up a Chrome standalone copy that runs standalone separate to the ones installed on the computer, which hasn't had anything disabled, and it worked just fine, as you can see. Now here is the area according to that layer of S4 in Google Maps, and my laptop does like 1200 by only 768 pixels, but it still looks pretty good, and we can probably get enough details from here to work with. But as you can see, I can't see anything obviously on that 3D map or 2D map. Now obviously the 3D map is using an algorithm to stretch the 2D from satellite view using also other information like altitude of the land mass, and then sort of stretching the image around it, so it's going to have deformed or artifacts in the imagery, and it's also going to be slightly out of accuracy as well by a few meters probably, and I'll go more into detail on that as we go on. So first of all, I'm going to look at this S4 on the map and then talk about Area 51 and other findings, and Bob Lazar of course. And as you can see, there's a level of detail that you can only get with the satellite, and you can see that the black bits are obviously black rocks, but they look blurry things, and there's probably some desert shrubs there which probably looks like black or grey smudgy things, but we're not going to see much detail. But you might be able to see patterns, and we'll enhance stuff in the video editor, see if I can see any patterns, to see if it matches up with possibly some hangar doors. As Bob Lazar said, that there are hangars built into the side of the mountain which mimic the slope of the mountain side and have roller doors. I have a picture here which I will show you, and they're camouflaged obviously, and of course looking straight down by satellite you're not going to see enough details depending on the angle of the slope of the doors, and of course the further away the less detail you're going to get, as you can see on these other airfield pictures as well that I've got up here. They're okay with a satellite view down to so many meters obviously over the military base, but they don't want a Google plane flying overhead to get more detailed street view, and also a car driving along with a 360 spinning rotating camera on top to take detailed pictures of all their facility and mountainsides. Obviously they're hiding something, because if you drag the icon over the S4 location like you do with the Area 51 here that it's talking about, you get a little UFO icon instead of the man, which is used for street view. Also, I found an article here where they did some tests on how accurate Google Earth is and Google Maps and altitude, and it goes into detail here of their findings, and like I said, it was only accurate within a few meters. They said it wasn't good enough for if you're going to do construction work, but it's probably good enough for rough driving location, which makes sense. Okay, before I took snapshots and poured into a graphic editor to do further enhancements, I had a good look online to see if I could find any more references to S4, to see if anyone else had done their own analysis on it, and there is. Apparently George Knapp did a presentation in Denmark and had some footage from some guy that had analysed it for him, and here's some screen snapshots from the presentation. I'll see if I can post a link to it in the description so you can watch the full presentation. But there also was some other videos on YouTube, which also seem to suggest the same sort of doors and structures, even though I couldn't really see much how they got it themselves. I couldn't actually get the same sort of low level and angle the same as they did on Google Maps, because they're using Google Earth. So obviously it's slightly different, and of course it has different artifacts. But Google Maps should be more current and be able to get some more details, so I thought, but it may not have been the case. Also, there was no time facility. You couldn't scroll back and say look back in time and see when the first satellite was taken off the same area to see if there was any other sort of lines or structures on the Google Maps. I think Google Earth offers it, and also if you go to Street View you get it as well. So maybe because Street View wasn't active, because it's been censored, we can't get the rollback and dates. But I may be wrong there. Maybe someone has more expertise with these Google Maps than I do, and can make a comment in the comments. What's interesting is the further away satellite view, and you can see there's more detail in the terrain. Like you can see how rocky it is, and you can see the white lines where the water runs off down in gullies or valleys in the mountainous range to the salt bed. So back to the lowest view possible, and let's do some work on it and see what we can find. Now Bob Lazar said the biggest UFO was 50 feet, and the hangar door bays were 70 feet across, which is roughly 20 meters, and that's about the smallest scale we've got on Google Maps here, as you can see in the corner on the bottom right. And so we've got to look for doors roughly that size. He said there were 9 bays or 9 hangar doors with roller doors coming down. So we have to see if we can see that. Since we haven't got street view and we can only go to the lowest level satellite imagery, stretching it over a 3D height analysis model will cause more artifacts, so I've gone for a 2D one, and I'm not sure if you saw, but there were some really faint lines that looked like lines. It could be just simply matrixing, and that we're seeing patterns, and I've drawn a box around it and changed the colour of the terrain to try and bring it out more, and I've also then drawn square boxes highlighting what I see. And sure enough, it does kind of look like there could be some hidden hangar bays there. Although on the 2D one I can only see 3, 4, maybe up to 6 patterns there. I've looked at it several times, and I also will do a 3D one of the same location to bring out what I can see. I sometimes wonder if someone in Google is playing a practical joke, but I don't know if you can see, but it looks almost, when I've brought out the details here, that it says a word saucer, like a UFO saucer. Looks like a S, and then a U, then maybe a A there, and then a C-E-R at the end. But you also can see the vertical grouping of black lines, and also horizontal black lines, which could be the hangar doors, of course. So I've drawn also lines around that. So I've tried a different type of colour filter and slightly different view of it. And so yeah, you can see patterns are forming, whether it's our mind playing trick, or you can see the letter S and all that as well. So now onto the 3D view of it. And as you can see, that's sort of stretched the 2D satellite view over a contour of the altitude and the edge of the mountain. And you can still see something there, but it's not as clear, I don't think. And you don't see the word saucer anymore, or you don't see the sharp vertical lines that you did on the 2D one. Now maybe older satellite photos had more of the lines that they're talking about in those older videos, I don't know. But I'm just going by what I'm seeing on the latest Google Maps. And you can see there's more lines here that look like even more hangar bays. So, I don't know, out of all those different ones I've drawn, there's patterns there. Goes from 3 hangar doors to 6 or 7 hangar doors. So yeah, so still up in the air to interpretation, I think. And look at the scale there, that they do seem to match the 20 meter mark, and so it sort of fits. And here's a artistic view done by someone else, showing the so-called bus and the road system leading up to the hangar doors and how far Groom Lake is. And I've done a satellite view here showing of Groom Lake, where the Air Force Base is located. They call it the Nevada Air Force Base on the Google labels. And you can see in the distance there where S4 is with the red indicator. Here is a map indication showing you how close it is to the gambling city Las Vegas, and it sort of gives you a visual idea of the distances there. I suppose it's quite big. When you do a search online for a definition for Area 51, you get a few descriptions here which I've posted, and basically they're just saying it's a military Air Force facility where they're doing U2 and stealth plane testing and secret research. That S4 is known as Site 4, so that's why the S4 name comes from, abbreviation. Of course, we only know about Area 51 because of Bob and his claims about UFO research there. And here's a brief summary of his story again, talking about how he approached the news network with the story, and talked about where the aliens come from. Zeta Reticuli 2, 4th planet from the star, and that the UFOs used element 115, which we'll talk about more later, and it used that to generate massive amount of energy to drive the gravity wave generators that pushes the device up. Now, although he may be legit, I don't think his science is. There's lots of flaws with his science, and I'll cover that later in the episode. Doesn't mean he's not telling the truth, just that means their understanding of what they were looking at may be wrong. If you had a look at my Tesla research episode on his findings about gravity, he said that they were flux as the atoms are drawing in energy from the ether. Now, if you can bend or deflect or block these flux lines, essentially you would be making the craft weightless like a balloon, and it would just, you'd float it around on minimal energy propulsion, and it goes super fast because it'd be super light like air itself. But that's just some other theories out there, and you can have a read of that. I won't read it out. Bob recently got interviewed again 25 years after the event, and he still sticks by his story, and he's not selling or profiting from the UFO side of things. He runs his own scientific business. It's up to you whether you believe it or not. He doesn't really care. And he talks about the craft design again, saying it creates its own gravitational field, which is slightly different to gravitation waves that he was talking about in earlier transcripts or videos. And also they talked to John Lear, and he said he gets a crackpot from MUFON asking him still if he believes in the Bob Lazar story, and he says he lived it. And remember, they went out to the desert when Bob said they were going to test fly UFOs because they're reverse engineering it. And sure enough, they said that they saw the UFOs fly over their heads and up in the sky, and they got buzzed, and also that they filmed someone's poor VHS tape. I think you can find them online. So it's up to you whether you believe him or not. His story does have some legs to it, and also there are some discrepancies in the science of it. And you remember that Stanton Freeman said he tried to research him and couldn't find any evidence that he went to university and got qualified. He said he doesn't doubt all the story, just some of it. Another person has come forward saying that they do remember him studying with them, so maybe his records got deleted, covered up by the government after he started leaking stuff. Of course, he didn't want to reveal his ID and face for that obvious reason, and since he come out and they pinned him, I suppose they knew who to cover up pretty quick. So let's go back to the map and have a look at Area 51 from the satellite. As you can see, it's quite a big place. Here's a picture of Groom Lake, and you can zoom into that and you can see all the large runways and all the different roads leading from it and all the buildings. And it's a massive site, and you can't fit it all on one screen. It's probably 3 or 4 screens long. Clearly this image has been updated because you can see a lot more extra building and runways being added. Of course, we don't know what's underground. There could be tunnels leading to the mountain and all the way to S4 now. And this strange shaped road system and little tiny buildings at various angles and corners, very strange looking, almost looks like a UFO landing pad. And maybe that section in the middle, square section in the middle, lowers down once something drives onto it or lands on it. Is it some sort of new radar type system they're trying out maybe, and it's underground there, and the shape is masses of electronic equipment. It's very strange. I don't know what to make of that. Anyone out there have a clue? Have they seen that before? I don't see this sort of stuff at regular airports. Although we can't see how big those 3 mounds of dirt are down there at the bottom there, but that shows a lot of earth moving been happening, and they pile up all the excess dirt. Also, there's another area called Area 6. It's a new facility. They say it's for testing out planes there and test equipment, and it has a 5,000 feet runway, and it's massive long runway as you can see on the satellite images, and it's close to, well, not so far away from S4 or Area 51 itself, and it's fenced off and not blocked off by white van cars like you normally get with the Area 51 location and S4. Okay, I'm getting near the end of the episode now. There's a couple of things to cover still. That is the element 115. Here's some articles here talking about it only lasts 200 milliseconds half-life. So that means it's very unstable, and they can't seem to find any way it's going to ever be stable, which sort of goes against Bob Lazar's claims that they had 500 pounds of it from other UFO crashes, or maybe they were given it by the aliens themselves with so-called secret relationship that's been going on. As you can read in the article, that talks about Bob choosing 115 because he knew it wasn't going to be able to be verified, and because he works in a chemical supply, so he knew what to choose for a story. But not always lost. They've now synthesized the next level up, which is 117 element, and they got the half-life to last 11 seconds, I think it says there in the article, and they're getting closer to the island of stability. So they reckon with a bit more playing around that the element 117 will be stable and could last forever practically. So maybe they got the element wrong, or Bob chose the wrong one. But yeah, so it's not the end game yet. Okay, that's the end of the episode now, and I will just play some music and show you the transcript of the Bob Lazar story that you can read on your own pace, and you can pause it from that point onwards, and or just skip to the end. I will play some music while it's going, and then it will wrap off with the logo. So hope you enjoyed the episode, and hit the like button on the way out, and I hope to see you on the next episode, and hope you share it on your social medias and get the word out, help my channel grow, and stay safe everyone. See ya.
Thank you.